Good morning, my name is James. I'm one of the trainees in Severn Deanery, and I'm going to be talking to you this morning about the Bahir Dar Orthopaedic Network and Exchange with Severn, or BONES. What is it? Well, it's a partnership between the Orthopaedic Department in a hospital in Bahir Dar, Northern Ethiopia, and the Severn Deanery Orthopaedic Training Programme. Why has it come about? Well, this all stems from the Lancet Commission on Global Surgery published back in 2015 to determine the burden of surgically treatable conditions worldwide. They looked at the number of deaths caused by the big three communicable diseases, HIV, TB and malaria, and found that year on year, just over 1 million people die of each of these three conditions. Sadly, these figures haven't changed much since 2010. They went on to find that the number of people dying from surgically treatable conditions, in particular trauma, are around 18.6 million, which is more than HIV, TB and malaria combined, so it's a staggering figure. The Lancet predicted that there are 33 million people each year who are unable to access safe or affordable surgery, and that an additional 143 million operations each year are necessary to save lives. The Lancet Commission concluded that by 2030 an investment of $350 billion would be required to address this problem and improve the provision of surgically treatable conditions. Whilst it's a staggering sum of money, the Lancet found that the majority of patients suffering from surgically treatable trauma are young adults who contribute most to a country's GDP. They found that with this investment by the World Bank's of $350 billion, the global economy would stand to save $12.3 trillion. They concluded that surgical care is affordable, it saves lives, and promotes economic growth. It was reading this report that really prompted me to think about how we can do our bit, and so we looked at potential sites for a project that would be suitable. We aren't the first region to do this. World Orthopaedic Concern UK, a charity that we're affiliated with, and a specialist society of the BOA, currently support a number of regional partnerships in Ethiopia with teaching hospitals in the UK. After a couple of initial visits, I found I loved the country, and on talking to Rick Gardner, former Bristol trainee, now clinical director of Cure Hospital, Addis, sought advice on whether setting up a regional partnership would be possible, and if so, where. He suggested I approach the unit in Bahir Dar. It is around 600 kilometres north of Addis Ababa and has a population of around 650,000, but serves a population of 15 million in northern Amhara. The orthopaedic department consists of around 10 consultants and just over 35 registrars. The bulk of visiting surgeons, however, come to teach at the large teaching hospital in Addis, so the guys up in Bahir Dar have little to no access to postgraduate orthopaedic teaching and training. It so happened that a consultant within my region, Mr. David Woods, had a similar idea, and so we decided to join forces. I also approached Mr. Thomas with the idea, as I felt it would be important to have buy-in from our TPD from the beginning if we were to open this up as an opportunity for all registrars in the region. He was incredibly supportive, and together we approached the orthopaedic team in Bahir Dar to see if they would be interested in forming a partnership for the purposes of postgraduate orthopaedic teaching and training. Here is a timeline of what we've achieved so far. Following an initial contact back in December 2018 via Skype, we had two initial visits to Bahir Dar in early 2019, one from Mr. Woods and a second visit from myself, Mr. Thomas and Jim Turner, who's one of the newly appointed paediatric orthopaedic consultants with a wealth of overseas experience. Following on from this, we wrote and signed a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU. This details what they want from us and what we think we can deliver. It includes the number of visits we think we can do per year and what teaching we will deliver based on the COSEXA syllabus, which is modelled on the FRCS syllabus. It also involves a promise to adhere to a strict code of conduct from SWOC UK to which we subscribe. This has an emphasis on teaching, not operating. We're not in the business of taking away training opportunities from local registrars, nor is this an opportunity for our registrars to practice cutting on the unsuspecting Ethiopian public. This is about not forcing Western orthopaedics down their throats, instead asking them what they need from us in terms of teaching and training. It's a promise to help set up their research and audit processes, deliver courses, and really the ideal model is for short trips, often 1 to 2 weeks in duration, with any member of the orthopaedic NDT welcome from any part of Severn Deanery, including physiotherapists, scrub nurses, plaster technicians, anaesthetists, orthopaedic registrars and consultants. Following on from the MOU, we delivered 2 successful trips to Bahir Dar and even managed to get 2 of their senior registrars to come and visit us. So here's a bit more about Bahir Dar. There are 2 hospitals in Bahir Dar, Village the government hospital, unfortunately not pictured here, and a new hospital, Tebebe Specialised Hospital, which is a university hospital which has been built and opened in January 2019. Take a few steps back, however, and you'll see that it's not quite the finished article yet. This is just outside the postgraduate teaching centre, as is this. During one of our first visits, the hospital was very much still under construction. This was in fact their resus bay when we first saw it. It now has colour-coded triage areas and a separate resus bay. A separate educational facility has also been built to include undergraduate and postgraduate training for nurses and doctors. This library and a new research facility are still under construction, but will look amazing once done. This is a view from the top of the library looking at the halls of residence for medical and nursing students in the foreground, and in the background the beautiful surrounding hills and countryside. So what can you expect to see when you come on your trip to Bahir Dar? Well, the patients you'll be faced with often present with severely neglected pathology. Sadly, the so-called critical conditions are so easy to come by. Delayed presentations of trauma, tumours, infection, congenital abnormalities and degenerative conditions are commonplace. Worse still is watching a list go down simply because there wasn't enough water to clean the surgical drapes. How easy is it to forget how lucky we all are to expect such excellent healthcare, and for us as surgeons to have all the equipment and implants we need so readily available that we can meet that expectation more often than not. So how can you possibly help? So what do we as trainees have to offer? Every time I tout the idea of getting involved to trainees, I hear the same response. Many of you are convinced you're too junior to be of any use. But let me ask you, how many of you have delivered a teaching session on an orthopaedic topic? How many of you have presented a paper at a journal club? How many of you have conducted an audit or supervised a junior doing an audit? These practices are ingrained in our day-to-day working lives. The simple truth is that we underestimate just how good our training is. So why not share that knowledge and share those skills? This photo was taken by Dan Yeomans, one of our new ST3s, whilst teaching on the primary trauma care course we delivered back in October 2019. The model of the PTC course is very simple. It's a 5-day course in which faculty from Severn Deanery, including 2 orthopaedic SHOs, 3 orthopaedic registrars and a medical registrar, an orthopaedic consultant and an anaesthetic consultant, delivered a low-resource version of ATLS. Over the first 2 days, the faculty from Severn taught a cohort of local orthopaedic residents, emergency room doctors, nurses and anaesthetic doctors and practitioners. The 6 best candidates from that cohort were then selected to go on to a one-day Train the Trainers course, where we taught the local team how to run their own PTC course. The local faculty then ran their own course with a new cohort of local delegates on the Thursday and Friday of the week. This graph is really quite exciting because it shows the pre-course test scores in blue and the post-course test scores in gold, but from the course that was delivered by the local faculty after having taught them how to teach the course. And you can see that the post-test scores, or the post-course test scores, found an improvement in all of the candidates, which demonstrates that the local faculty have learnt how to deliver a really excellent high standard course. Here is the post-course photo, which will hopefully mean more now than it did when it first showed up at the beginning of this talk. Here are photos from the most recent trip at the very beginning of March of this year, whereby Simon Thomas and Tom Napper, one of our registrars, taught paediatric flexible IM nailing. Here's Tom teaching a group of local registrars. Another of our registrars, Alex Aquilina, pictured at the far right of this photograph, introduced a virtual reality educational platform by the name of Verti to see if this would be of any use to surgical training in a low-resource setting. Here is Binny, one of the senior residents, now a consultant, doing a trauma case and essentially filming their own content to be used by their residents as a step-by-step guide for how to approach this case. As demonstrated here with one of the residents wearing the headset and going through the content recently recorded. It was an absolute honour to extend the same hospitality to our Ethiopian counterparts, as we were able to get two of their senior registrars, Binny and Bakalu, to come and visit the UK. Here they both are, giving their best blue steel in the very fetching pink scrubs you might find in Southmead Hospital. This is them on an AO Basics course, which they enjoyed, as did the course faculty. And here is Binny and Bakalu staying with one of my old bosses, Mr. Andrew Kelly, down in Taunton. Here they are practicing their presentation they're going to give as keynote speakers at the BOTA conference that happened a year or so ago in Edinburgh. There are, of course, many fantastic cultural experiences on offer as part of this project. Here is Alex Aquilina on the latest trip in March, enjoying the Blue Nile Falls. Apparently this is off-season, and often it's much more impressive when it's in full flow. There's some interesting food on offer. Here's some of the local cuisine. You've got the injera on the outside of the plate, sort of like a pancake made of a protein called teff, which for anyone who's interested is gluten-free, and some kind of curry that's in the middle. I don't think I was feeling particularly hungry that day. And here's a view of Bahir Dar itself, which sits on Lake Tana, and the river you see in the foreground is actually the source of the Blue Nile. So it's a lovely place to come visit. In terms of most frequently asked questions, I often get asked if trips to Bahir Dar can be taken as study leave, and the short answer is yes, they can. The SAC have published guidance to say that trips up to 2 weeks in duration visiting a low or middle income country such as Ethiopia on a project such as this can be taken as study leave. The added benefit, of course, is that any CBD, KEX, observation of teaching or audit performed whilst at the hospital in Bahir Dar can be captured on IRCP and counted towards ARCP, so arguably a far more interesting way to tick those ARCP boxes. The other questions I get asked are how much it costs. It costs about £1,000 for a 2-week trip. Trainees, there is money available to subsidise the trip, at least £500 currently, available from our budget, and there's also other grants available from BOTA and the RCS. Consultants do have to pay their own way. Is it safe? Yes, it is safe. At the moment, however, there is potential civil war happening in the far north of the country. We've been informed that it's not affecting Bahir Dar, but these things are always checked prior to going away on the Foreign Office website, and there are various contingency plans should anything happen when in country. Malaria prophylaxis is generally advised because we're by the banks of Lake Tana, and Zika has been reported. So if you're thinking of starting a family, that's an important consideration. Their COVID rates have been very low, but they have had a very sensible approach to it, and do have testing facilities available. And so whilst we've halted travel for the time being, hopefully it'll be back up and running soon. So where do we go from here? It's fair to say that COVID has of course impacted this partnership. As with everyone else, we've had to think of other ways to deliver teaching. I'm very grateful to Andy Jones and this year's board committee for granting access to Ollie Pearce's fantastic Borg app with its recorded lectures. All Ethiopian registrars have smartphones, so this will definitely be a resource that they will greatly benefit from. Some of you will be aware of David Woods' initiative to buy Bahir Dar their very own sea arm. This incredible act of generosity will make a huge difference. Whilst the machine has been paid for, we now need just a few £1,000s to cover the cost of shipping. So if anyone's feeling generous, please contact myself or David. Quick thank you to all of our partners who have made this project possible. And I will leave you with a picture of the Blunar Falls in full flow. If anyone is interested, whether you're a registrar or consultant in getting involved, please do get in touch. We should be back up and running, hopefully in the new year.